Hey there guys, today we're going to talk about the over underpass. Right now we're working our way through a series in guard passing where we study the 7 strongest guard passes in Jiu-Jitsu. The double underpass, the over underpass, the knee cut, the long step, smash pass, the leg drag, and the Toriano pass. The 7 strongest passes in Jiu-Jitsu. Today we're continuing with the over-under. Last week we looked at the double under, where both of my arms were under both of my opponent's legs. Double under. Today and this week we're looking at over-under, where I have one arm that's over my partner's leg and the other that's under the leg. And we're going to use a heavy pressure pass to get the breakthrough. Now this over-under pass, sometimes you have to let the position marinate. This is not a quick, fast pass. Sometimes this pass will take a minute or more to complete because of the nature of it. But once you get good at it, it's incredibly strong, okay? Let's take a look at the basic mechanics and then we'll start to troubleshoot and go through some of the details. Adam's gonna be on his back. And we've been looking at this same idea for passing guard, the same 4-step system, where step 1 is where I break my opponent's connections to me. We're not dealing with our opponent's connections this week, we did that a couple weeks ago. So we're gonna start right into step 2, pointing the feet away. After step 2, then we go to step 3, which is controlling the pocket of the hips. And step 4 is making that shift from head and shoulders. So again, this 4-step system, step 1, break your opponent's connections. Those connections are dangerous. They can be used to break your stance and balance, they can be used to sweep you, and they can be used to submit you. So step 1 is break those dangerous connections. Step 2, point the feet away from you. Nothing good ever happens from feet pointing at you. When the feet point at me, that's how he makes his connections to me. Feet point at me, he makes daily Hebo hooks, reverse daily Hebo hooks, butterfly, ashigarami, X-guard, spider hooks, lasso hooks, collar cuff bicep, you name it. All of those things come out of the feet pointing directly at me. So step number 2 is get those feet to point away from you so he can't go into his dangerous game. Step number 3 is getting tight to and controlling the pocket of the hips so that we can shut out his knees and his feet. Then once we have the pocket of the hips controlled, step number 4 is patiently managing the transition from the hips up to the head and shoulders. We stay on the hips for a brief time, and then we manage the transition from the hips, we climb the body to the head and shoulders with this same 4-step system. Every guard pass we're going to look at for the next 7 weeks are going to have the same general 4 steps. Breaking connections, pointing the feet away, getting tight to the pocket of the hips, and then managing the transition from hips to head and shoulders, or the so-called cranial shift. So let's see how we do this with over-under. In the over-under pass, my opponent's feet are generally lower than the knees. We saw if the feet are higher than the knees last week, we point the feet up and away, and we go into double underpassing. When the feet are lower than the knees, his foot lower than the knee, now we tend to point the feet down and away. So my first thing is I come up and I make that foot point down and away. Next, I'm going to get my body tight to and control the pocket of the hip. So I come in here, my head goes to the pocket of the hip here, so that I get inside Adam's left knee. Now I need to capture the other knee. So I walk around the corner, my hips capture Adam's right knee, and I drag it back to the center. Once the knee's back to the center, I step out, and I control the hips just like so. Now, I'm controlling the pocket of both hips. If Adam goes to push or move me off from here, it's very hard. Now we manage the transition from hips up to head and shoulders. So that's our basic pass. I'll show you one more time. I'm going to put you just a little this way. First, point those feet away from you. Next, get to the pocket of the hip. We're going to expose the pocket of the second hip then. Now with the pockets of the hip exposed, my last step is to make the transition from hips up to the head and shoulders. So let's look at the details of this now. First detail, let's rotate. I come up, I control the leg 2-on-1, and I take a grip on the outside of the gi pants, and I throttle my hand, pointing the palm and the heel of my hand down to the floor, here. Now, with the heel of my hand pushing into the cloth of the gi pants, when Adam goes to point his foot back at me, he can't, it's a strong grip. So he's gonna point his other foot at me. That's fine, I'm just gonna grab, and I'm gonna point that foot away. Now, next is get it tight to the pocket of the hip. I wanna get my head to the pocket of the hip over here, and I want my shoulder to stabilize the position by taking my left shoulder and stapling it here, right into his belly. Okay, so step number 1, point the feet away. Step 2, get in tight to the pocket of the hips. Okay, let's troubleshoot that, getting into the pocket of the hips a little bit. Now I come in here, I point the foot away from me. I take this foot and I point it away. Adam feels very vulnerable because his hips are exposed. So a lot of times what people will do is they'll take their left knee and bring their knee in front of them. And now I can't just come in to the pocket of the hip, his knee's in my way. So what I do from here, I can do this from a standing position, or I can drop and accept the knee shield. It doesn't really matter, you can do it either way. And he's got this knee shield. Now from here, I'm gonna bring my hand in between me and his lower leg, and I hook his ankle with the crook of my elbow. He's gonna keep this knee into my chest, that's fine. Now using the crook of my elbow, I'm gonna start lifting the ankle. And what that'll end up doing, as I lift, it'll draw that knee out of my way. Now with the knee drawn out of my way, I'm gonna pummel my head around the knee, and I'm gonna get my head into position. So that's the first trouble spot. That's the first area you guys are gonna run into problems when you try to make this pass work. So this first trouble spot, dealing with the knee shield. I try to come into the pocket of the hip here, and his knee's in my way. So I take my arm inside, elbow at the ankle, and I start flaring this ankle open. That's gonna force Adam's knee to come out of position. Now I can pummel my head around the knee, dive my head into the pocket of the hip, and my left shoulder comes up and staples into position here. So we beat the first knee. Okay. Next, we're gonna have to beat the second knee, and we're gonna do that by walking our hips over the knee. So from this, I should continue to look this way. I should keep my head facing the logo, but I'm gonna turn and look at you guys so I can talk to you. So from this position, I'm gonna tripod up, keep my shoulder in the belly. And now I'm gonna walk with my hips until I cover the knee, and now my hips are gonna drag the knee back to the center. So now I'm gonna look the proper way, and I want you guys to watch how I overtake Adam's knee. I'm up in my over-under position. Adam's going to keep his knee tight to his chest. You know? I'm going to walk until I cover the knee. Now my hips scoop and take his knee back to the center line until I get his knee pointing that way, away from the direction of the pass. Once I have the knee pointing that direction, I back step, and my right knee shelves under Adam's knee. I like to have my two hands clamping around the hips in this scenario, and I keep my knees off the floor so that all the weight goes down into Adam's hips. Now if Adam tries to push me off with his hands and tries to move around and shrimp, it's so hard for him to do anything. And then finally, we manage the transition from the head and shoulders. Actually, let's go this way. Now from here, I want to go from the hips to the head and shoulders. But if I'm not careful about how I do that, I let go of the hips, I go up to the head and shoulders, and Adam creates all sorts of space and recovers. So from here, Adam's going to be framing on me. He's going to be using his hands exactly, or his elbows. So from this position, I want to use either my left hand or my left leg to deal with this frame. I can use my left leg by keeping my hand on the hip, and now my knee comes up, and my knee comes inside his elbow to take care of the frame. So that's dealing with the frame using my knee. The hand controls the hips, while the knee takes care of the frame. We can also do that in the reverse order, where my leg and my knee control the hips, and my arm deals with the frame. I'm up in this position, I take my knees in, and I pinch with the knees. Now my arm comes in, I get inside position on the arm, and I move the frame out of my way. Now I can start to climb high, control the head and shoulders, and we're up with a good pass. So we saw a couple trouble spots. There's one more trouble spot I want to talk about. The first trouble spot was beating that knee. And we use the crook of our elbow on his ankle to lift the ankle until the knee comes out of my way, and I pummel my head inside the knee. We saw how we deal with the last frames. When I back step and I get my legs completely out of his legs and I'm hunkered down in the hips, I can use either my arm or my leg to take care of the frame. One more problem that you're going to run into with this pass is you're not going to distribute your weight well, and your opponent will off balance you. Okay? Adam, will you put your head this way? So I get into the over-under pass here. And if I am square with my hips, if I come up to a square tripod where my weight is evenly distributed, Adam can control my cuff, and he can throw his left leg out wide, so it kind of, it kind of takes me over and gets me out of balance. He may sweep me with it, he may not. But when I'm up with a square tripod, and then he controls my cuff, and then with momentum throws his leg to the outside, it has a strong off-balancing effect. So to counteract that possibility, I'm going to shift my hips to an asymmetrical tripod to set my body against the direction he wants to off-balance. I come in, I come up to this tripod. Now right from here, I'm going to take my left knee and bend it so that my left hip drops and my left shoulder drops. Here. Now with my weight offset and my foot posted here, Adam goes to off balance me the same way, and it's just not the same. If I extend my left knee and I square my weight, now I'm going to start getting tipped over. So that's another big trouble spot for people, is they get off balanced. Using that asymmetrical tripod fixes this. Adam, can you look up for just a second? So when I come up to this tripod, I'm not going to be here square. Rather, my leg bends and I shift my hips to set my hips to one side. Not here, here. So let's go over the over-under pass again, looking at all three of those troubleshooting spots now. Step number one, breaking connections, but we're not dealing with breaking connections, so let's go right to step number two. Point those feet away from you. Here, I use the heel of my hand on the cloth. He goes to point his foot back at me, he can't. I keep this foot pointing away. Now, the next step, after we point the feet away, we get to the pocket of the hip, but Adam's going to hide the pocket of his hip with his knee. So now from here, I take this grip on the ankle. He's going to keep his knee in front of me like a knee shield. I lift the ankle until the knee comes out of my way, and I pummel in to this position. As soon as I'm here, Adam's probably going to keep his right knee pulled to his chest. I'm going to shift my weight, my asymmetrical tripod. Now as Adam tries to off balance me like he did before, Just doesn't have the same effect. Now I need to overtake the near knee, so I walk my hips around to an angle until my hips come over the knee, and then I drag it back to the center. Once I get his knee back to the center, I'm going to back step and leg pump my right leg out and shelf my knee behind and under his knee. Now the last troubleshooting spot, Adam's going to set straight arms as frames. Exactly. Now from here I can either use my knee to wedge his hips so my arm can deal with the frame, or I use my arm to wedge the hips while my knee deals with the frame. And now we can make that tight transition from the hips up to the head and shoulder. Now, next, I'm going to show you guys a sneaky little submission here on the over underpass that'll be available to you, a knee bar. Okay? I'll get right into it. So from the over under, we get to our position here. I walk over the knee and I capture the knee. Now I'm going to start to walk my legs down and I'm going to triangle my legs. Now with my legs triangle, I'm going to scoot, walking my knees back, and I'm going to let my triangle pull up on the ankle while my hips drive down through the knee for a quick knee bar on this knee. Let's show this from the other angle. So I come in, I stuff the foot, point the foot away from me. I get into the pocket of the hip. Whether or not I need to deal with the knee shield is irrelevant for the knee bar. I can either get in straight away, or if Adam knee shields, that's fine, I deal with the knee shield, doesn't matter. And we're here, he's got his right knee pulled to his chest. Pull your right knee to your chest. Yes. So I need to walk overtake that knee. And now I'm going to use my legs to straighten his leg, triangle my legs, and I walk my knees back. Now I'm going to flare my knees open, pulling up on his ankle as I drive my hips down through the knee for a quick knee bar submission. So that's a really nice submission option to have off the over-under pass. In the middle of the over-under pass, you can always end the jiu-jitsu match, or end the MMA fight or the street fight or whatever you will, with a quick submission there, an attack on the knee joint. So those are some of the basic ins and outs of the over-under. I'm sorry, there's one more troubleshooting spot that I do want to go over. Fairly basic, but if I don't mention it to you, you're going to get caught in this. And that's the danger of the triangle off the over-under. Can you put your head to the camera? So with Adam's head to the camera here, let's pull you back in frame. From the over-under, I have one arm under and one arm over. But if I'm not careful about how I do this, and I leave Adam's foot free on the outside, and I go into my over-under, Adam can easily throw up a triangle. So, when I start the over-under, I point his foot between my legs, like so. It's very important that his foot stays here the whole time. If I come into my over-under position, and then I lose track of the foot, and he's able to escape his foot, the triangle is there. So that's a big danger in the over-under pass, is the exposure to the triangle. But as long as we keep the foot stuffed between our legs, there is no triangle danger. In gi, I'll hold the gi pants like I've been showing. In no gi, I'll cup the ankle with an ankle grip like so. So I come up, if Adam goes for his triangle, that foot's caught. And I can keep going for the over-under. So that's another common issue with the over-under pass. So a quick recap, for those of you who are keeping track, following along. we had the over underpass with some trouble spots. First trouble spot was beating the first knee. We used the elbow, lifting the ankle to get inside that knee. Then there was the triangle danger. We keep the foot stuck between our legs to avoid the triangle. There was the danger of being off balanced to the side. And we set an asymmetrical tripod so that our weight was shifted against the side he wants to off balance us on. And then the fourth troubleshooting spot was dealing with his frames so we can manage the transition from hips to head and shoulders. And we saw that I'm going to use either my arm to control the hips and my leg to beat the frame, or use my leg to control the hips and use my arm to beat the frame. So those are 4 of the biggest trouble spots you're going to run into, and you have the solutions to them. Getting inside the first knee, avoiding the triangle, using an asymmetrical tripod to avoid the off balance, and then using either your arm or your leg to take away their frame. Then we moved on to the cool little submission. There's a knee bar off there, and I showed you guys that there's that knee bar submission option off the over-under pass. Now, in this last part of the video, I'm going to show a few techniques where we learn how to connect our over-under pass to another guard pass. I'm going to show a couple versions at first where I connect starting with the over-under and transitioning into the double-under from last week. Then I'm also going to show you starting with the double-under from last week and then transitioning to the over-under from today. So we can start with the over-under and go to the double-under, or we can start with the double-under and go to the over-under. It doesn't matter which order you do these in. What's important is that you start to understand the concept and the notion that you can start to mix and match your guard passing. You can go from one pass to another pass, to another pass, back to the original, and you can start creating passing chains. When you guys are starting to train and go against better and better partners, you're going to have to throw up more than one attempt, more than one attack. If I just throw up one attack, be it a sweep from open guard, a submission from guard, a guard pass, or whatever, if I just throw one attack at a time, my partners know what I'm doing. My partners all know what an arm bar is, what a triangle is, what a sweep is, what a guard pass is, etc. They know what all these techniques are. So your partner's going to know how to stop them. They're going to know how to defend them. And if you get into the habit of giving up at the first sign of failure and resetting, you're going to have a damn hard time breaking through and passing guard on tough, talented opponents. Rather, the people who eventually do get the breakthrough on tough, talented opponents are those who are able to string a failed guard pass into an immediate follow-up attempt with another guard pass. And if the second pass fails, they string it to a third. If the third fails, to a fourth, etc. The better you get at chaining all these guard passes together, the better your guard passing abilities are going to be. You got to start off with one technique. You got to start trying one technique at a time. But as you build skill, work to connect guard passes together. So, I'm going to show the over-under and double-under and how they connect. And then we'll close out the video by showing how we connect this to half guard passing, which is a little different entirely. So, over-under, double-under. So connecting the over-under to the double-under. I come in here, I point the foot away from me. Now I want to get into the pocket of the hip. Adam knows that. He knows he wants to protect the pocket of his hip. As I start coming in force, Adam is going to put up hand frames, and he's not going to let me get into the pocket of the hip here. So I got my arm underneath the leg, I'm under here, I'm over here, it looks like everything's set up, everything's going well. I take my head to the pocket of the hip and he frames. So now my over-under is failing. I can't come through on this side. So because I can't pass through the legs, I'm going to start passing under the legs in another direction. I come in here, he frames. What I'm going to do is I'm going to pummel my left leg to the inside position, strong body. I'm going to pummel my left leg to the inside position, here. Now my right leg steps around the corner of the hips. My left arm comes to the inside position to avoid getting triangled. And I'm going to drop to my knees as I line myself up from the near hip to the far shoulder. And now you guys can see we're in here for the double underpass. We saw how to finish this last week, going nice and easy here, driving my knee, or his knee to his nose. My left arm goes under the hips and starts lifting the hips. And ideally, we want to drive his hips all the way over his shoulders. Adam's neck is hurt a little bit today, so I'm going to be nice and easy on him. I lift the hips. I take my knee over the bicep. My right arm goes across to the pocket of the hip. And then we turn down and eventually come up to control the head and shoulders. It's the same idea. Feet are pointed away from me. I get to the pocket of the hip, and then I get up to the head and shoulders. One more time on that technique. I point the foot away. My intention is to go in with an over-under pass. So I start getting over this leg, I go under this leg, I come in, and oh no, I run into framing issues. So now from here, I need to pummel my left leg and my left arm inside and under this leg so we get to double under. Because right now my left leg, my left arm are over, so we're going over under, and I need to transition to double under. So my left arm and my left leg need to transition to where they can be under the leg. So you start off over under. He frames. My left leg and my left arm transition inside. Now I step around and I come to this angle, lining up from the near hip to the far shoulder, diagonally across the body. My shoulder drives his knee to his nose. I start to lift the hips, and we create the plow position, taking his two big toes toward the mat. My knee goes over the bicep. I control the pocket of the hips. And then we make our transition from the hips to the head and shoulders. So that's how we go from the over-under attempt and transition into a double under. Let's look at another common scenario where I try to start with a double under, and then because of Adam's defenses, I transition to over under. I point the feet up and away from me. Okay, so I see the feet are higher than the knees. So I come in, point the feet up and away, and I come down, get shoulder to hamstring. Now, Adam knows I'm underneath both legs. He knows that's a bad thing for him. So he's gonna pummel his right leg back underneath something, either underneath my arm, underneath my leg, anything. And now because his leg's underneath me, if I try to stack, it's not gonna go well from here. Even worse, if he extends that right leg, it might put me into a triangle. So when I see this kind of thing happening, and this leg is now getting underneath me, the double under is no longer there. But now I can start to go over this leg. So I control the ankle, stepping over, my arm comes over, my head turns to the pocket of the hip, and lo and behold, we're in our same position. Now I go through, capturing the knee, drawing it back to the center, and we complete our over-under guard pass. So one more time, double under to over under. I see the feet are higher than the knees. So that's my cue to take his feet up and away. I come in, I try to set up my double under pass, and Adam pummels this foot back to an inside position. Oh shoot. Now I'm under this leg, but now I'm starting to get over this leg because this leg went underneath me. So I'm going to control, I'm going to stuff this leg further underneath me. Okay. Or here I go to the ankle, I stuff the ankle and step over. My shoulder covers, and now we're in over under. Okay, so we start here. Stuff, go over, my head switches to this hip. I set my hips against the off balance, so I turn my hips this way, so if Adam tries to off balance me, he can't. And now we complete our guard pass. So as you guys can see, the passes that I'm teaching you work very well together. You can start off with the over-under and transition and finish with a double-under. Alternatively, you can start with a double-under, then transition and finish with an over-under. Now, for the last part of this video, we're going to connect today's lesson with a future lesson. The first 3 months of this year, January, February, March, are all going to be open guard passing. April, the 4th month, is going to be a very unique, very niche kind of guard passing, half guard passing. I'm going to give you guys a brief introduction to some of the ideas associated with half guard passing, and then I'm going to show you guys how we can connect the over-under pass and turn it into what looks like the finishing part of a half guard pass. Okay, Adam, if you would come on out, put your back in the mat. So from this position, we looked at and studied half guard from the bottom person's perspective. Adam wants to deny me head and shoulder control, so he wants to keep his knees and his elbows together, everything tight, so I can't get in and control the head and shoulders. If Adam can stop me from controlling the head and shoulders, this is a great sweeping position for him, and not so much of a good position for me. From this position, Adam can start to swim in with an underhook, and come up and start working roll through sweeps and wrestling sweeps and all that. However, half guard can also be a great guard, or a great guard passing position. The only difference now is I get inside the knee into the pocket of the hip, and I come up and I get control of his head and shoulders. So understand that half guard is both a great position for the bottom person, and it's a great position for the top person, depending on whether or not the top person can control the bottom person's head and shoulders. Again, if I can get in here and control the head and shoulders, it's a phenomenal guard passing position for me. If Adam denies me control of the head and shoulders, it now becomes a very good sweeping position for him as he comes up into underhooks and starts taking my back and all sorts of things like this. So, in half guard passing, our general process is we get in past the knee shield and we get into the pocket of the hip. Now we go up and we gain control of the head and shoulders, just like we've been doing with open guard passing, but now I need to extract my leg. All right, we basically got the guard pass, except my leg is still caught. Now we free the leg in 2 stages. In stage 1, we free the knee, and in stage 2, we free the ankle. So I come up, I free the knee first, and then we've got to find ways to come up, and now we have to start looking how we can free the ankle. So that's our basic half guard passing. In April, we're going to learn all about this. We get in tight to the hips and control the pocket of the hips, control the head and shoulders, and now it's a matter of setting a good cross face so I can free the knee, and then ultimately free the ankle. Now, how does this relate to over-under guard passing? Let's have a look. Now, sometimes in your over-under pass attempt, let's put your head